Captain Rex Thompson slouched in his chair, boots propped up on the desk, while his alien classmates fidgeted nervously around the pristine white classroom of Kepler-7 Station, the so-called most prestigious survival academy in the galaxy. Looked like a fancy community college to him, complete with motivational posters featuring various species giving thumbs up. Well, appendage up anyway? Welcome, beings, to advanced survival techniques, squawked Professor Klix, a pompous bird alien whose feathers ruffled with self-importance. His beak clicked as he spoke, making every word sound like a disapproving TSK. I am honored to teach the most dangerous course offered at this academy. Rex glanced at his classmates. Zilt, a nervous purple mollusk thing, was literally oozing anxiety through his skin pores. Rex, who looked like a walking crystal chandelier, kept adjusting his warrior stance every few seconds. Nora, the stoic reptilian with scales that shifted colors based on mood, had gone completely gray, which Rex had learned meant either battle-ready or about to pass out. Hard to tell with her. This semester, Klix continued, strutting across the front of the room, you will learn the ancient art of predator evasion. Those who master these techniques become legends. Those who fail, he paused dramatically. Well, let's just say our memorial wall has plenty of space. The entire class went silent except for Zilt's nervous bubbling sounds. Rex raised his hand. Yeah, quick question. When you say predator evasion, are we talking like lions and tigers and bears, or more like, I don't know, the neighbor's aggressive poodle situation? Every alien in the room turned to stare at him. Klix's head tilted 90 degrees to the left, a gesture Rex had learned meant either confusion or impending violence. Sometimes both. Captain Thompson, Klix said slowly, are you perhaps unfamiliar with the reputation of creatures such as Void Stalkers, plasma wolves, and terror birds? Nope, never heard of them. But they sound adorable. Are they fuzzy? Zilt made a choking sound. Vex's crystalline structure literally cracked with shock. Nora's scales turned bright orange, which definitely meant what the hell is wrong with this human. Adorable, Klix repeated, blinking his large black eyes rapidly. Captain Thompson, these creatures have been responsible for the extinction of 17 civilizations. The terror bird alone can hunt through 14 dimensions simultaneously. Okay, but like, how big are we talking? Chihuahua size? Golden Retriever? Great Dane? 12 to 15 feet tall, with claws that can slice through battlecruiser hulls. Rex nodded thoughtfully. So, Great Dane size. Got it. The professor's feathers stood completely on end now. Captain Thompson, I'm beginning to question whether your species truly belongs in this advanced course. Perhaps you should consider transferring to basic plant identification. Hey now, I'm here on a full military exchange scholarship. Earth Command specifically said I needed to take the toughest survival course you had. Something about making humanity look good or whatever. Klix's beak clicked rapidly. Very well. But I warn you, human. This course has a 97% failure rate. Most beings don't even survive the first practical examination. When's that? When's that? Tomorrow. Rex grinned. Perfect. I haven't had a good challenge since I taught my sister's cat not to knock plants off the windowsill. The silence in the room was so complete that Rex could hear the station's life support systems humming. Finally, Zilt spoke up, his voice a terrified whisper. Did he just compare surviving galactic apex predators to disciplining a house pet? I think he did, Nora replied, her scales now flashing between orange and deep red. Fascinating, Klix muttered, making notes on his tablet. Simply fascinating. Class dismissed. I suggest you all spend tonight writing final letters to your loved ones. Except you, Captain Thompson. Perhaps you should write a will. As the other students filed out, still muttering about humans and their apparent death wish, Rex stretched and yawned. Tomorrow was going to be fun. The next morning found Rex whistling his way to the training facility, a massive dome structure attached to the academy's main building. His classmates were already there, huddled together like they were attending their own funeral. Which, given the circumstances, might have been accurate. "Ah, Captain Thompson," Professor Klix called out, his tone suggesting he'd spent the night reconsidering his life choices. How refreshing to see someone approaching their probable demise with such enthusiasm. "Thanks, Professor. So what's the game plan? Do I get a spray bottle for the big ones, or are we going old school with newspaper swatting?" Zilt's eye stalks retracted completely into his head. Vex made a sound like wind chimes in a tornado. Even Nora's usually stoic expression cracked slightly. "Captain Thompson," Klix began, pulling up a holographic display, "today you will face 3 of the galaxy's most feared predators in controlled environments. First, the Void Stalker." A terrifying image appeared, showing a creature that looked like what would happen if a panther, a spider, and a nightmare had a baby. Its sleek black form seemed to absorb light, and its 6 eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence. "Nasty-looking kitty," Rex observed. "Does it respond to treats?" "Treats? Treats?" Klix's voice rose to a shriek. "This creature has telepathic hunting abilities, acid claws, and can phase through solid matter. Its mere presence has been known to drive lesser beings insane. So that's a no on the treats. Got it. What about belly rubs?" Vex actually shattered a small piece of his crystal arm in shock. The sound of tinkling glass echoed through the dome. "Next," Klix continued, clearly questioning his career choices, "the plasma wolf." Another hologram appeared, this time showing a creature that looked like a wolf made of living fire and bad decisions. Its eyes burned with nuclear intensity, and electricity arced between its teeth. "Oh, that one's definitely a bitey boy," Rex said, nodding approvingly. "Probably needs a lot of exercise. Does it fetch?" "It fetches souls, Captain Thompson. Souls. Weird name for a stick, but okay." Finally, Klix brought up the last image. And the terror bird. Rex stared at what appeared to be a peacock that had been hit by radiation and raised on a diet of pure malice. Its feathers shifted between dimensions, creating a dizzying kaleidoscope effect, and its beak looked sharp enough to cut through reality itself. "Okay, that one's definitely going to need some socialization training," Rex said thoughtfully. "Probably food aggressive. You got any bird seed?" "Bird seed?" Klix was practically hyperventilating now. "This creature exists partially outside our dimension. It hunts by manipulating probability itself. Entire fleets have vanished just because a terror bird decided they looked tasty. Yeah, territorial birds can be tricky. My neighbor had a parrot that was like that. Real attitude problem. But give them enough attention, and they calm right down." Nora's scales had cycled through every color in the visible spectrum, and were now showing colors that probably didn't exist. "Rex," she said quietly, "I think there might be some confusion here about the scale of these threats." "What do you mean?" "I mean these aren't pets. These are weapons of mass extinction." Rex shrugged. "Tomato, tomato. Every animal's got its own personality, right? You just gotta know how to approach them." Professor Klix slowly turned to face the other students. "Class, I want you to observe very carefully what happens next. This may be the last time we witness this level of confidence in the face of certain death. Or," Rex said cheerfully, checking his watch, "it might be the first time you guys see how Earth handles pest control. What time do we start? I want to be done in time for lunch." The dome fell silent except for the sound of Zilt's nervous bubbling, which had reached alarming levels. "Very well," Klix said, his voice hollow with resignation. "Enter the first chamber, Captain Thompson. Try to survive long enough for us to learn something from your inevitable failure." "Will do, Prof. Hey, you guys got any snacks in the observation deck? This might take a while if the critters want to play." As Rex walked toward the chamber entrance, Vex turned to Nora. "Should we start planning his memorial service now, or wait until we find enough pieces?" "I'm not sure there will be pieces," Nora replied, her scales now a resigned shade of blue. The chamber sealed behind Rex with a hiss that sounded remarkably like the universe taking a deep breath before everything went wrong. Through the reinforced observation windows, his classmates pressed their faces against the glass, like they were watching the galaxy's most expensive disaster movie. "Beginning Void Stalker simulation," Professor Klix announced through the intercom, his voice carrying all the enthusiasm of someone reading a death certificate. "May whatever deities you worship have mercy on your soul." "Thanks for the pep talk, Coach," Rex called back, rolling his shoulders and looking around the stark white chamber. "So where's this shadow kitty I keep hearing about?" The lights dimmed and reality seemed to hiccup. The air itself grew thick and oppressive, like being wrapped in a blanket made of pure malevolence. Temperature dropped 20 degrees in 2 seconds. From somewhere that wasn't quite anywhere, a low growling sound emerged that made several nearby galaxies nervous. Then the Void Stalker materialized. 12 feet of liquid nightmare flowed into existence, its 6 glowing eyes fixing on Rex with the intensity of collapsed stars. Acid dripped from claws that could have doubled as industrial excavation equipment. The creature's form seemed to shift between dimensions, making it impossible to look at directly without getting a headache. In the observation deck, Zilt had retracted into his shell so completely that he looked like a purple rock. Vex was praying in 17 different crystalline languages simultaneously. Nora had given up on maintaining her stoic facade and was openly staring in horror. "Magnificent," Professor Klix whispered, "and terrifying. Mostly terrifying. Captain Thompson's biometrics should be spiking with fear right about now." But he frowned at his readouts. "That can't be right." Down in the chamber, Rex tilted his head and studied the Void Stalker with the critical eye of someone evaluating a potential pet adoption. "Well, hello there, gorgeous," he said in the tone usually reserved for baby talk. "Aren't you just a big scary boy?" "Yes, you are. Yes, you are." The Void Stalker paused, its reality-bending growl tapering off into something more like confused rumbling. "Oh, you're probably hungry, aren't you? And scared? New place, weird smells, lots of strange aliens staring at you." Rex slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a protein bar. "I don't know if you eat people food, but this stuff tastes like cardboard anyway." He tossed the bar gently toward the creature. The Void Stalker's head tracked the movement with the precision of a targeting computer, then looked back at Rex with what might have been bewilderment. "Not hungry? That's okay. Sometimes new environments make you nervous about eating. How about we just hang out for a bit?" Rex sat down cross-legged on the floor, completely ignoring the fact that he was within easy killing distance of a creature that had once depopulated an entire solar system during a particularly bad mood. The Void Stalker tilted its head, mimicking Rex's gesture in a way that was either adorable or absolutely terrifying. Probably both. You know what I think?" Rex continued conversationally. "I think you're just misunderstood. Everyone sees the scary claws and the whole existing partially outside reality thing and assumes you're some kind of monster. But look at those eyes. Those are smart eyes. Curious eyes." The creature's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, like a cat slow blinking at someone it trusted. In the observation deck, Professor Klix's beak hung open so wide that a small maintenance drone could have flown through it. "Is he?" Vex whispered, his crystalline voice crackling with disbelief. "Is he socializing with it?" "That's impossible," Nora breathed. "Void Stalkers don't socialize. They consume. They hunt. They exist only to turn living beings into component molecules." Rex stood up slowly, keeping his movements calm and non-threatening. The Void Stalker watched him with what was definitely interest rather than hunger. "Hey there, Shadow Buddy. Want to try something fun?" Rex held out his hand, palm up, the universal gesture for "I'm not carrying weapons and I'm probably an idiot." The Void Stalker extended one massive paw, its claw, capable of slicing through battle armor like tissue paper, gently touched Rex's palm. "Good boy," Rex said warmly. "You're just a big softy, aren't you?" The creature made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and the heat death of the universe. It was probably the most terrifying noise any of them had ever heard, except Rex seemed to interpret it as contentment. Simulation complete. The computer announced in a tone that suggested even the artificial intelligence was confused. As the Void Stalker faded back into whatever dimension it called home, it actually looked sad to go. Rex waved goodbye. "See you later, pal. Maybe next time we can play fetch." Professor Klix stared at his readings, then at Rex, then at his readings again. "Computer," he said weakly, "please run a full diagnostic on all sensors." "All sensors functioning normally, Professor." Subject displayed no fear response, no elevated stress markers, and somehow managed to establish what appears to be a positive social bond with a Class Omega threat entity. Rex knocked on the observation window. "Hey, can we do the fire dog next? I want to see if he's as friendly as he looks." 2 hours later, Professor Klix was seriously considering early retirement, moving to a nice quiet planet, and taking up meditation. Or heavy drinking. Possibly both. Rex had just finished his encounter with the plasma wolf, which had gone roughly the same way as the Void Stalker situation. By the end, the creature of living nuclear fire was rolling on its back while Rex scratched behind its ears, somehow without being incinerated. "Okay," Rex said, dusting off his hands as he exited the second chamber. "That was fun. Plasma Pup was a little nippy at first, but once he realized I wasn't trying to fight him, he calmed right down. Classic pack behavior, really." Zilt had given up pretending to be brave and was now openly cowering behind Vex, who was somehow cowering behind his own crystal formations. Nora had cycled through so many scale colors that she was starting to look like a living rainbow. "Captain Thompson," Professor Klix said, his voice barely a whisper. "Would you mind explaining to the class exactly how you managed to achieve a 98% compatibility rating with creatures that typically register negative compatibility with all known life forms?" "Oh, that's easy," Rex said, settling into his chair like he'd just finished a pleasant walk in the park instead of cuddling with weapons of mass destruction. "You guys have been thinking about this all wrong." "Wrong?" Nora managed to croak. "Yeah, so you keep calling them predators, right? But predator just means they hunt other things for food. On Earth, we've got tons of predators. Dogs are predators. Cats are predators. Humans are predators. Doesn't make us monsters." X's crystal structure was resonating at a frequency that suggested deep confusion. "But these creatures have destroyed entire civilizations." "So have house cats if you give them enough time and the right motivation," Rex replied cheerfully. "The trick isn't avoiding predators. The trick is understanding what they actually want." "And what do they want?" Professor Klix asked, despite himself. "Same thing every animal wants. Food, safety, companionship, and maybe some entertainment. Oh, and respect. That's the big one everyone always forgets." Rex stood up and walked to the holographic display, calling up images of the creatures he'd just encountered. "See Shadow Buddy there? He's not evil. He's lonely. Existing partially outside reality means he doesn't get to interact with other beings very often. When someone finally treats him like an individual instead of a threat, of course he's going to be friendly." "Shadow Buddy?" Klix repeated faintly. "And Plasma Pup? Classic pack animal behavior. He was being aggressive because he thought I was challenging him for dominance. Once I showed him I wasn't a threat and established myself as a potential pack member, he settled right down." Zilt's eye stalks emerged cautiously from his shell. "But how did you know to do that?" "Because humans have been doing it for thousands of years. We turned wolves into dogs. We convinced cats to live with us even though they're perfectly capable of taking care of themselves. We've domesticated everything from horses to hamsters." "But surely," Vex protested, "these galactic predators are more dangerous than Earth animals." Rex shrugged. "Are they, though? I mean, sure, they're bigger and have some fancy abilities. But fundamentally, they're still just animals. They have needs, instincts, and emotional responses. You treat them with respect and understanding instead of fear and aggression, and they'll usually respond in kind." Professor Klix was frantically taking notes. This is revolutionary. You're suggesting that our entire approach to dangerous fauna has been fundamentally flawed." Not flawed, exactly. Just incomplete. You guys have been so focused on the evasion part that you forgot about the understanding part. But the terror bird, Nora said. That creature exists partially outside our dimension. It manipulates probability itself. How do you apply pet psychology to something like that? Rex grinned. Want to find out? The chamber containing the terror bird was larger than the previous two, with reinforced walls that looked like they could withstand a direct hit from a battleship, which, given the terror bird's reputation, was probably exactly what they were designed for. Beginning final simulation, the computer announced. Warning: this entity has a 100% fatality rate in previous encounters. That's okay, Rex called out. Everyone's got to have a first time for everything. As reality began to twist and the terror bird started manifesting into existence, Professor Klix turned to his remaining students. If Captain Thompson somehow survives this, he said quietly, I'm completely rewriting our entire curriculum. The terror bird materialized into reality like a living kaleidoscope having an existential crisis. Its prismatic feathers shifted through dimensions that hurt to look at, and its mere presence made the laws of physics file a formal complaint. Rex whistled appreciatively. Now that, he said, is one fancy chicken. The bird's multidimensional beak turned toward him, and reality hiccuped. Suddenly, Rex was simultaneously standing in the chamber, floating in space, and somehow existing as a mathematical concept. It was disorienting, but he'd had worse experiences at college parties. Easy there, pretty bird, Rex said, his voice echoing across several probability streams. I know this whole materialization thing is probably exhausting. Takes a lot of energy to exist in multiple dimensions at once, doesn't it? The terror bird paused in its reality warping display, tilting its head with interest, or possibly malevolent hunger. With interdimensional entities, it was hard to tell. That's when the alarm started blaring. Emergency protocol activated. The computer announced in the tone of an AI that had just realized it was about to become unemployed. Simulation containment breach. Repeat, containment breach. Through the observation windows, Rex could see his classmates and Professor Klix frantically pressing buttons and shouting at displays. Red warning lights bathed everything in the color of impending doom. Professor Klix, to all personnel, came the panicked voice over the intercom. The containment fields have failed. The simulated creatures are now real and loose in the facility. This is not a drill. Evacuate immediately. Rex looked at the terror bird, which seemed as confused as everyone else. Well, this is awkward. Looks like your cousins are having a bit of a rampage. The bird made a sound like wind chimes being played by a temporal paradox, which Rex somehow interpreted as concern. Yeah, I'm worried about my friends too, Rex agreed. Tell you what, pretty bird. How about we go check on everyone, make sure they're okay. The chamber door, previously sealed by military-grade security systems, simply stopped existing as the terror bird casually edited it out of reality. Rex walked through the knot door into chaos. The corridor was filled with panicked aliens running in every direction while security teams tried to establish defensive positions. The Void Stalker was flowing along the ceiling like living shadow, apparently playing hide and seek with itself. The plasma wolf was in the cafeteria, and from the sounds coming from that direction, had discovered that industrial food replicators made excellent chew toys. Oh boy, Rex muttered. This is like that time my sister's cat got into the catnip and invited all the neighborhood strays over for a party. Professor Klix spotted Rex and came running, his feathers completely disheveled. Captain Thompson, thank the cosmic winds you're alive. We need to evacuate immediately. Security forces are already overwhelmed. Where's everyone? Barricaded in the main lecture hall, but it won't hold for long. These creatures are beyond our ability to contain. Rex nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, they're probably scared and confused. Being suddenly yanked from simulation into reality would mess with anyone's head. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Hey, Shadow Buddy. Plasma Pup. Come here, boys. A horrified silence fell over the corridor as every alien present stared at Rex like he'd just volunteered to juggle antimatter. The Void Stalker's head emerged from the wall next to them, its 6 eyes bright with recognition. It made that universe-ending purr sound, but quieter this time, almost questioning. "There you are," Rex said warmly. "I know this is all confusing, but everything's okay. Your friend Pretty Bird here was just showing me around." The terror bird materialized next to Rex, accidentally editing several potted plants out of existence in the process. The plasma wolf came bounding down the corridor, leaving molten paw prints in the metal flooring. "Good boys," Rex said, somehow managing to project calm authority while surrounded by enough destructive power to end several civilizations. "Now, I know this is all very exciting, but we've got some scared people here who need our help." The 3 creatures exchanged looks, or the interdimensional equivalent of looks. "See my friends over there?" Rex gestured toward the terrified security teams. "They don't understand that you're not actually dangerous. They think you want to hurt them." The Void Stalker made a sound of distress that caused minor tremors in the space-time continuum. I know, it's not fair. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to show them that you're good boys, and then maybe we can figure out how to get you back to wherever you're supposed to be." Rex began walking toward the main lecture hall, 3 of the galaxy's most feared predators following him like oversized puppies. Professor Klix trailed behind at a safe distance, muttering into his communicator. "Command, this is Klix. You're not going to believe this, but I think the human just adopted them." The scene in the main lecture hall looked like the universe's most tense petting zoo. Rex sat cross-legged in the center of the room while the terror bird preened its reality-bending feathers. The Void Stalker had somehow managed to curl up like a cat, despite being the size of a small spacecraft. And the plasma wolf was playing with a holographic ball that Rex had materialized from the room's educational systems. Around the perimeter, approximately 300 aliens, security personnel, and Academy staff watched in stunned silence. Some were taking notes. Others were quietly having existential crises about everything they thought they knew about dangerous fauna. "So the trick with interdimensional entities," Rex was explaining to a rapidly scribbling Professor Klix, "is that they experience time and space differently than we do. What looks like aggressive behavior is usually just them trying to communicate across dimensional barriers." The terror bird chirped, a sound like crystal bells ringing in the space between seconds, and nuzzled Rex's shoulder with its reality-warping beak. "Exactly," Rex agreed, as if he'd understood perfectly. "It's all about establishing trust and mutual respect." Director Vortak, the station's highest-ranking official, chose that moment to burst through the main doors, followed by a full battalion of galactic security forces in power armor. "Where are the hostile entities?" he barked, weapon systems charging. "Sensors show Class Omega threats in this location." Rex looked up from where he was giving the plasma wolf belly rubs. "Oh, you mean these guys?" "Yeah, they're right here. Want to meet them?" The director's 4 eyes widened as he took in the scene. "Captain Thompson, step away from those creatures immediately. They're weapons of mass destruction." "They're really not," Rex said patiently. "Look, Shadow Buddy here. He's actually a pacifist." "Aren't you, boy?" The Void Stalker made a contented rumbling sound that only caused minor reality distortions. "And Plasma Pup is just high energy. He needs lots of exercise and mental stimulation." "Captain Thompson," Director Vortak said carefully, "those creatures have a combined kill count in the billions." "Yeah, well, so do humans when you add up all our wars and stuff. Doesn't mean we can't learn to be civilized." Rex stood up, brushing imaginary dust off his uniform. "Besides, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of these species. The galactic security forces were maintaining defensive positions, but Rex noticed their weapons weren't actually aimed at the creatures anymore. Or to maintain proper threat assessment, when one of your targets was playing fetch, and the other was asking for ear scratches." "What kind of misunderstanding?" Director Vortak asked. "Well, everyone keeps calling them predators, right? But that's not really accurate. They're more like," Rex paused, searching for the right words. Okay, you know how humans classify dogs as predators? Technically true, but it misses the point entirely. Professor Klix stepped forward, his notes clutched in his wing hands. Director, I've been observing Captain Thompson's interactions with these entities for several hours. His approach has yielded unprecedented results. What kind of results? 0 casualties. 0 property damage beyond what occurred during the initial containment breach. And establishment of positive interspecies relations with creatures previously considered impossible to communicate with. Director Vorthak looked around the room, taking in the peaceful scene. This is highly irregular. Most breakthroughs are, Rex said cheerfully. Look, I know this goes against everything you've been taught, but maybe the problem isn't that these creatures are inherently dangerous. Maybe the problem is how everyone else has been approaching them. You're suggesting we've been wrong about fundamental threat assessment for centuries? I'm suggesting you've been incomplete about it. Fear and aggression tend to generate fear and aggression in response. But curiosity, respect, and genuine care? That tends to generate cooperation. The terror bird chose that moment to demonstrate by carefully editing a small flower into existence and offering it to Director Vorthak. The gesture was so unexpectedly gentle that several security personnel actually lowered their weapons. Furthermore, Professor Klix added, warming to the subject, Captain Thompson's methods suggest entirely new approaches to interspecies relations, conflict resolution, and even space exploration. If we can establish peaceful contact with entities we previously considered absolutely hostile, we could revolutionize diplomacy throughout the galaxy, Director Vorthak finished, his tone shifting from alarm to wonder. Rex grinned. Now you're getting it. Though I should probably mention that I need to head back to Earth soon. My cats are expecting me, and they get cranky when dinner's late. Your cats? Yeah, I've got 3. Mr. Whiskers is pretty chill, but Fluffy and Princess Destroyer are total drama queens. Way more demanding than these guys. The silence that followed this statement was broken only by Zilt's quiet voice from somewhere in the crowd. But did he just say his Earth pets are more difficult to manage than galactic apex predators? Pretty much, Rex confirmed. Cats are the real challenge. These guys just needed someone to listen to them. 6 months later, the Galactic Academy's new human-style interspecies relations program was booked solid for the next 50 years. Professor Klix had been promoted to Dean of Revolutionary Diplomatic Studies. Rex had turned down 17 job offers, 3 marriage proposals, and 1 offer of religious worship from a species that had decided he was obviously a god. He was back on Earth, sitting in his backyard while Mr. Whiskers judged him for being late with the evening treats. You know what the funny thing is? He said to the cat, who was pointedly ignoring him in the way only cats could master. Everyone out there thinks I'm some kind of genius for treating dangerous aliens like people. But really, I just applied everything I learned from living with you guys. Mr. Whiskers finally deigned to look at him, yellow eyes filled with the kind of superior wisdom that only came from being a house cat. Yeah, that's what I thought too, Rex agreed. Humans aren't special because we're fearless. We're special because we're dumb enough to try making friends with things that could kill us, and just stubborn enough to keep trying until it works. He scratched behind Mr. Whiskers' ears, earning a purr that was infinitely more terrifying than anything the Void Stalker had managed. After all, cats were the species that had successfully domesticated humans. Now that was an apex predator worth respecting.